I've seen people in cars reading books, playing on their phone, eating a bowl of cereal with no hands on the steering wheel. You see all kinds of crazy things because we sit up so much higher than you, so we see everything.
Logistics are a critical element of our country's infrastructure. In the neighborhood of 75% of our nation's goods get transported cross-country by truck. And when you consider local deliveries, everything you buy has probably been touched in some way by the trucking industry.
Roughly, I would say 99.9% of the freight is sold, because even if it's shipped on rail, on a train, it still has to be loaded into a truck and taken to a warehouse.
And this traffic rides on the American highway system, where there are two types of people, truckers and everyone else.
Mainly, it's cars. That's our main risk.
The real deal is always a bit different. Trucking is no exception. We've always wanted to have a trucker as a guest in order to explore what that life is like, what the risks are out there on the road.
Now, I'm lucky enough to be on the board of Enterprise Mobility. They just bought Hogue Trucking, one of the nation's leading trucking companies.
Perhaps you've seen them out there with their bright blue caps.
And we were able to score a really fun interview with driver Joshua Hogue.
Something that people don't really understand about the trucker is the dedication that we put into making sure you get the goods that you want to buy. We're out here missing birthdays, anniversaries, holidays, spending time with family just so the freight gets to where it needs to be.
But first, many thanks to our sponsor for this episode, Culligan. Culligan's drinking water systems deliver the superior filtration and refreshing hydration you need to fuel your high-performance lifestyle. Culligan, water you love.
We caught up with Josh in between runs and during a rare 2-week vacation. So Joshua, welcome to the Adrenaline Zone. We've always wanted to have a trucker on the show, and we're really grateful for you to spend some time over the holidays with us. So we got a ton of questions for you. And we like to start by asking our guests kind of what led them into their profession in the first place. How did you get into the trucking business?
I got into it when I was a little boy. My grandpa actually drove for about 40, 50 years. So I used to ride along with him when I was a little kid and always said I was going to do it when I grew up.
What attracted you to it?
The love of the open road, just being out there, being able to see things, getting pretty much paid to sightsee.
From that moment when you were a little boy, I guess your grandpa was able to give you information on how you got into training and what the career progression works. But can you explain that to us? You know, once you decide you're going to be a professional driver, how you get the training, and then what's the career progression as you go through, or is there one, or how does that work?
Well, what I did when I started it back in 2007 was I went to an accredited school, and it was pretty much a 3-week or 4-week class where they teach you for 12 to 14 hours a day. You practice. They teach you the beginning level of doing a pre-trip inspection, your driving, your backing skills. You sat there and practiced. And then they get you your permit. And then after you go on the road and all that, then they take you to an actual CDL test site, a DMV test site, and they get you your driver's license. And then after that, I signed on with Hogan. They actually did. I signed a 14-month contract with them. They paid for my schooling, and I couldn't even remember how much of the percentage of it was, but I signed 14 months with them.
It sounds really intense for 14 hours a day for 4 or 6 weeks or something like that. And I got a healthy respect for truckers when I learned how to back a boat trailer. It's like, okay, this is not as easy as it sounds.
No.
But, well, the funny thing is, the longer the trailer, the easier it is to actually turn it.
Oh, really?
Really?
Because you got more of a moment arm or something?
Yeah, the shorter the wheelbase, the faster the trailer will actually pivot and turn.
That's interesting. So let's talk about the truck. Can you give our listeners a feel for the difference between the higher end classes of trucks, class 7, class 8, that kind of thing, and your horsepower, weight, fuel, carriage, all the kinds of things that go into what makes a big truck?
Well, I mean, you got your Kenworth, you got your Peterbilt, which those are your high-end trucks. Everybody wants to be in one of those, but they range from anywhere from 400 to you can go up to 1,000 horsepower or more. It just all depends on what you want to do to it and how hard you want to run it. But more commonly is fleet trucks, which run right around 400 to 500 horsepower. I mean, the normal truck companies run Freightliners or Internationals, Max. So they're more middle beginner level kind of truck. And then you got your super sleepers, which have everything in it that, an RV has.
So speaking of RVs, Sandra just went around an amazing country in a small RV. So she's probably got a good feel for what you all are up to in that regard. But so I guess this is the Class 8 that's the sleepers?
Yes.
And different horsepowers. Do you have to get a separate qualification for a different brand of truck? Do you have to get special training for like a Freightliner as opposed to a Mack truck or something like that?
No, what it is you get what it calls a Class A CDL, which that will allow you to drive a semi truck, a Class 8 truck, and a 53-foot trailer or 28-foot, depending on what your company wants you to haul. But their box trucks will take what they call the Class B license, which is for a smaller weight. Class A is for 80,000 pounds or more.
Mm.
Wow. Twice the size of an F-14. Yeah.
Does the level of technology in the truck or the controls vary by class? Do you have, how autonomous are they these days? Do you have automatic shifts, manual shifts, navigation? I mean, are the cockpits pretty sophisticated, or does it matter on the class?
No, it doesn't matter on the class. It just depends on, the truck and how much money you want to put into, a base truck versus a higher end truck. They've got pretty much all the same. It just, do you want more cabin space for the sleeper area, or do you want more luxury?
Can you custom order them?
You kind of custom order them to your chrome packages and stuff like that, your seats, but that's not it. Is how to upgrade it with the chrome and make it look pretty.
Well, how about the controls in the cockpit, though? I mean, obviously you've got some kind of navigation. You've got Sandy asked manual or automatic gear shifts. Are there any other, like the highest end truck? What's it like for the driver on the instrument panel, that kind of thing?
In my experience with the trucks that Hogue drives is we're automatics, which most major carriers are running automatics. But, every once in a while you'll see a manual transmission, which goes from a 10 speed to a 13 to an 18, which I've never done a 13 or an 18. I've driven a 10 speed. Some like our trucks, our internationals actually have a massaging seat for the driver and the passenger.
Very cool.
The lumbar supports actually inflate and deflate to kind of massage your back as you're driving because you're sitting there so long.
How connected are you? Obviously, you're going to have a cell phone and that sort of thing. But do you have is there anything reported to a control center? Like airplanes, and I don't necessarily mean to monitor your driving, but modern airplanes have sensors that feed information to maintenance depots when parts are wearing out. That sort of thing. How connected are your tractors?
In these newer tractors, being in the computer age, there's all kinds of sensors and computers on pretty much everything. The transmission, the engine, that it's all ran by computers. So we have what they call the ELD, electronic logging device, which keeps track of our logs for us. And through that system, our company can go in and see what the truck's doing, if there's a miscommunication, if there's a problem going on, they can see it before we do. But, that's on the ELD. It also has our navigation through our logging, through the logs. So it'll tell us a route that it wants us to take that, by your weight and all that, you can be on certain roads. So it'll take you through on the roads that you're allowed to be on for your weight class, for your height wise, length restrictions.
Do you have to take the route it suggests? Because sometimes when I do those map apps, they're really not helpful. You
Yes.
probably found that.
No. I started driving the truck before there was navigation in 2007 in the trucks. So I'm used to using an atlas. So I look at their route, what the computer wants me to take, and then I look at my atlas and look on the roads that says I can be on it or not, and then I'll route myself. Sometimes I'm faster, sometimes I'm slower. It just all depends on how many 2-lane roads you're going to be on versus interstates.
So it's kind of an advisory service that you apply judgment to, which I think is pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
That's the smart way to do it. Is there any new technology coming down the road, so to speak, for the trucks that you're looking forward to? Or
I mean, I haven't heard anything, but we have lane departure, just like how all these new cars have it, where it'll tell us if we're getting too close to the line, and it actually makes a sound on that side of the cab, so it tells us what side we're getting too close. Then we have the automatic braking system, that if we get too close to the vehicle in front, it automatically starts applying the brakes for us.
that could be helpful and annoying.
It is, but to me it's real helpful because you never know what's going to happen. You got to have that safety cushion, and a lot of people in four-wheelers, that's what we call them, is the cars. They either get in front of us and then slow down, but we have to have that safety cushion because we can't stop like them.
Yeah, I have a joke I tell about when I'm in Florida that you're in a sandwich between somebody who's really old, has their blinker on, and all that kind of stuff, and going really slow, and you have a Florida man and a pickup truck, like 2 inches away from your bumper. You probably live that all the time.
Oh yeah,
So,
see it every day.
We're really grateful to Hogue for letting us have access to you. And one of the things they wanted to make sure that we knew is that you carry a lot of different types of loads. Can you give us a sense for all the different loads that you carry? And if you know what percentage of cargo, logistics cargo in the U.S. is shipped by trucks? Any thoughts on sort of those two questions?
The freight that I know that I've hauled personally is dry van freight, which is your everyday things from groceries to, bulk chemicals. You just never know. It just depends on if it needs to be on a dry trailer, which a dry van is just a regular box van. Then I've hauled for some of our dedicated accounts that we haul refrigerated units, which is your produce and stuff like that, your ice creams, your meats. I've done livestock where we haul live animals, but I've done like flatbeds, like hold containers that hold your household stuff, like when you move from pods. I've hauled those before. So people's furniture and all that. The only thing I've not really gotten into is tankers. I've done cars. We have a car division. So, I mean, that's a lot of fun to me. The livestock's a lot of fun.
And I would imagine that there are certain subtle differences between those types of loads in how you manage the truck. Obviously, you got to be careful with the livestock not to throw them around too much, I would imagine.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Very cool.
So I don't think people realize how much gets shipped around the country via trucks. Do you have any idea of the...
I'm thinking, if I remember right, it's right around like 71 to 75%.
Yeah, I thought so.
But I mean, roughly, I would say 99.9% of the freight is hauled. Because even if it's shipped on rail, on a train, it still has to be loaded into a truck and taken to a warehouse.
The last tactical mile. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you guys are a critical part of the logistical infrastructure of the country. I don't think people realize it when they see you on the roads out there. So I wanted to make sure we got that point across.
As someone who thinks a lot about performance, I've always known how important it is to have top quality drinking water. But I never thought about the impact that bad water could have on my home until I got a water softener and saw the huge difference it can make. My dishes don't come out of the dishwasher with spots on them. My showers and sinks are cleaner, and I can even use less soap and detergent. If you want to see how much a water softener can help you too, get started by scheduling your free water test at Culligan.com.
As Sandy mentioned, I've been driving in a camper van. I'm in New Zealand at the moment, and I really enjoyed it because it was cozy. So I suspect I would really like your accommodations in your Class 8 trucks. Do you guys have toilets and induction stoves and running water? How fancy do those living quarters get? Are those really just a bunk bed?
It all depends on, the company you work for, smaller mom and pop trucking companies. Some of them have those super sleepers, which have a shower in it, washer and dryer,
Wow.
stove, cooktops,
Really?
king size bed in it. And then there you got, most carriers have double bunks, which is 2 twin beds in it, and a mini fridge, not classified as a dorm fridge, but a little bit smaller. And then microwaves is what we have in them.
So you have two beds. Does that mean one person can't? Can you be asleep while somebody else is driving? Is that allowed?
Yes,
or do you have?
That is called team driving.
Okay.
So one person will drive a 12-hour shift, from, we'll just say, midnight to noon. And then at noon, the guy that was asleep will get in, do his pre-trip on the truck, and then start driving from noon to midnight. Wow. That keeps the truck moving 24 hours a day.
That's intense.
How many hours can you drive generally? I know it depends on terrain and the load and all that kind of stuff, but how many hours can you drive on one load of gas?
On one load of gas, it all depends on what your truck, I fill up every other day and I might put 80 to 100 gallons in. But, some trucks get 5 miles to a gallon, like the older trucks. The newer trucks,
wow.
you can get 8 to 10 miles to a gallon. It just depends on how heavy or how light you are.
We had rules when we were on the space station. We had rules about how many hours we were allowed to work and how many hours we had to rest. Do you guys have rules like that?
Yes. We have what they call an 11-14 rule, and that's federal. So in a 14-hour day, you're allowed to drive 11 hours. So anywhere in between that time, you can say you start at 7 o'clock in the morning, you have to be shut down by 9 o'clock at night. And any time in the between there, you're allowed to drive.
And then how long do you have to rest before you can drive again?
10 hours.
10 hours, okay.
Yep, you have to be down for 10 hours.
How about other rules that our listeners might not be aware of that are oriented towards safety and that sort of thing? Any particular things you got to adhere to?
I mean, mainly it's the 11-hour, 14-hour DOT rules. If you start a minute early from your 10-hour break, you're in violation. And then, the other rules are that if there's a light out on the truck, you can actually get pulled over and get a ticket just for a marker light being out. You see cars driving around missing headlights and all that. We're not allowed to do that. And, the tickets vary for, a seatbelt ticket in a car is maybe $10, $15. In a semi-truck, it's $300.
So you guys have a whole nother standard.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, I guess the implications of something going wrong with a big truck are a little more serious maybe than with a car, but pretty amazing.
You guys are on a schedule. And I was curious about how much control do you have over managing that schedule? Like what kind of margin do they put in there for traffic and weather? Because you have to kind of work around impromptu gifts from the universe as you're driving across the country. So how much room do you have to manage that?
It all depends on how hard you want to run yourself. The company that, Hogue actually does their loads at 55 miles an hour. So looking at your mileage, And that's what most companies will do is run 50 to 55 miles an hour. That gives you extra play time to, they say you run 60 miles an hour. You want to run a safe speed. So at 60 miles an hour, if you're averaging that, you'll have, a couple hours to play with. So, I mean, it just depends on how hard you want to run and push yourself.
Okay.
That's how they load it. And, off of their time is what you get for yourself. So your 10-hour breaks and all that.
So but the 55 is sort of an average, because if you're going around a loop, say around Atlanta, that's going to take, you're going to be doing 20 for an hour.
Yeah.
Something horrible.
Yeah. Traffic does eat into it a lot. But I mean, the good thing is if we're having issues, if there's a major accident or something, all we have to do is call in the dispatch and say, hey, this is what's going on. Send them a message on the ELD system, and they will relay it to the customer. So, I mean, you try to adhere to the timeline, but sometimes you can't.
Kind of walk us through, if you would, a typical run. I'm curious, obviously you started by hooking up to a trailer, unless it's already done for you. Do you usually do the same route over and over again? Or is every single day is different? You've got a dispatch that says, okay, we need you to take this trailer from point A to point B and then go pick up another trailer and take it to point C. How does that rhythm work for you?
It all depends on if you're on like a dedicated account or if you're what we call an OTR driver, which is over the road. So if you're on a dedicated account, you might get the same run and do it every day, day in, day out. Or, on some dedicated accounts, you'll pick up from that same location and you'll go to different locations all over the country. It just all depends. Over the road, you pick up at point A, you're going to take it to point B. Then you're going to go to point C, pick up again, or deliver more freight, and then go to D or E. It just all depends.
If you're an over-the-road driver and you're going from A to B to C to D, that could be weeks at a time. So how do you get downtime or time off to see your family? Or how's that built into that kind of a schedule?
The way I do it is I roughly go 3 weeks out and then go home for a few days and then go start all over again. That's how I like to do it. Some drivers, they'll stay out for months on end and then go home for a month. It just, if the wheels aren't turning, you're not making money.
Yeah.
Yep. That's a pretty stark way of putting it.
Yeah, that's a rough lifestyle. But you can control it a little bit, it sounds like, based on your cadence. I have to ask you this question. What are your favorite and least favorite states to drive through? Do you have some?
It depends on the time of the year. Upper Vermont, upper New York, not New York City, but the countrysides in the wintertime is actually really pretty. Seeing the snow on the trees and all that. Or, going up like the 101 in California. I like to drive up that. Back in the day, I used to have a route that would go out there. And be able to drive up the coast and see the ocean out your window is actually really nice.
Yeah, no kidding.
There's cities that I don't prefer to go to, like LA, New York City, Boston.
Yeah.
Fort Worth, Dallas is actually really pretty. So is Houston, but the traffic's horrible.
Yeah.
Yeah. Every time I see a big truck in the middle of city traffic, my heart bleeds for them. I'm like, oh my gosh, those poor people having to drive around all these crazy cars in this traffic. Not fun.
At least having an automatic transmission might make it a tad bit easier rather than having to shift gears constantly, which you probably had to do at the beginning of your career, I would imagine.
It's a lot easier on the leg. I'll say that. You ain't got to sit there and play with the clutch all day long.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So, Josh, I am currently in Colorado at 10,000 feet. And as I was driving up here, I thought of you. And can you walk us through what you have to manage going through a mountainous region? Everything from, chains to, going down the mountain, that kind of thing. It probably takes quite a lot of your attention compared to, say, just a nice flat run someplace.
Going up in the mountains and going down the mountains is actually, it's a challenge in its own, especially if you have to go up like right now during the winter time, especially where you're at in Colorado. There's snow on the road. You have to carry snow chains, and you have the minimum chain restriction. Then you have a maximum where you got to put, 2 chains on the truck and that's it versus, 6. But going up, is actually pretty easy. You slow down a lot depending on how heavy you are. And then same thing with when you're going downhill. A lot of states actually put a speed limit for us. So if you weigh a certain amount, you can only go this fast. So that's why you see trucks going down the mountain doing 25 miles an hour.
Yeah, I mean, I've watched in the wintertime, you don't want to put on chains any more than you have to. So you're pulling over and you're putting on the chains, and the weather can be horrendous. I see guys out there chaining up their trucks in the worst weather. It's got to be miserable doing that.
It is, but after a few times of doing it, you kind of get like a little, I would say, routine on how it's easier for you to put it on than versus how it would be for me to put it on. But you'll get some of the old school drivers that'll actually, when they're putting their chains on, if you need help, you can actually ask them sometimes. And they'll help you if you've never done it before. Like my first time of doing it up in Downers Pass in California, I had no clue what I was doing. And when I was sitting at a spot, a couple of old drivers pulled up next to me, and I, strictly asked them. I was like, hey, can you explain this to me, or can I watch you do it so I can know what I'm doing?
So that kind of goes to the trucker ethic, right? Of helping each other, helping people in distress, that kind of thing. You talk just for a second about that.
Some drivers, I'd say drivers, but some people will help others, some won't. I mean, you have the good and the bad with everything you do, but a lot of times you'll get the good driver that they'll help you with whatever you need. Say you need help sliding your tandems at the truck stop, and you're having a problem trying to do it. Some drivers will come help you slide. Say you're backing into a parking spot. There's drivers that'll get out and actually help guide you so you don't hit another vehicle as you're backing in.
You're passionate about pushing yourself to always be better. Culligan's water experts feel the same.
That's why their smart reverse osmosis filtration systems do more than deliver ultra-refreshing, pure-tasting water. Their app also lets you set drinking water goals, seek water quality information, and get filter change alerts. And with cleaner, safer, great-tasting water available right from the tap, you can also feel good about all those single-use plastic bottles you're saving from landfills.
Get started with water you love today. Schedule your free water test at Culligan.com. This podcast is about managing risk, so we have to talk about the risks and the hazards that are out there on the road. I can think of bad weather, other drivers, animals. I mean, what do you consider some of the major hazards and risks that you have to manage as you're driving around the country?
Mainly, it's cars. That's our main risk.
It's us.
I believe you.
But I mean, there's animals and all that, as you're driving at night. I mean, you're driving all over New Zealand right now. So you'll see animals crossing the road. That you got to watch out for them. You got to keep your eyes constantly moving through your mirrors and through the windshield of the truck to make sure that there's no hazards on the road. Things might fall off of other people's vehicles at night. You don't see them until you're almost right there. You got to kind of keep your eyes moving so you see everything at all times.
So just for my personal benefit, what is the most annoying thing that you see the four-wheelers doing that really gets your spine tingling?
not paying attention to what they're doing. I've seen people in cars, reading books, playing on their phone, eating a bowl of cereal with no hands on the steering wheel. I mean,
Okay.
you see all kinds of crazy things because we sit up so much higher than you, so we see everything.
That's amazing.
You should write a book about that.
I'm
That'd
determined
be a really
to be more
good.
careful. I don't do any of those things, by the way, but I've probably, done something. Do you ever have somebody try to tail you a little too close? Sometimes you see trucks actually air drafting on each other, but is that a real thing?
I don't know if you get better fuel economy out of it, but millions of people think it does. It's very unsafe because you can't see around me. If I've got to hit my brakes, you're going to go underneath me or in the back of me. But they do it every day, though. So that is a big hazard right there, people tailgating us.
Now, when somebody does that to me, I tend to turn on my windshield washers, and it's kind of a signal to them, right? And so I know I've affected them when I see them turning their windshield wipers on because I got to them, and it's kind of a little signal. That's a little harder to do for you. Do you have anything that you can do to kind of shed these people who are tailgating you?
Well, the way I was trained was if someone's tailgating you, slow down.
Yeah, that's what I do.
Make them want to go around.
Yeah.
That's probably the safest thing to do.
If I slow down and they don't want to go past me, then if I'm coming up on an off ramp, I'll put my blinker on and slow down even more, making it look like I'm getting off the highway, just to try to push them to go around me, just to give me that safe space.
What would be the one request that you would have from four-wheel drivers, car drivers, to keep in mind when they're around trucks on the highway? Just
to remember that there's blind spots on your car. The blind spots are even bigger on a semi-truck. If I can't see you in my mirrors, then you can't see me, then I can't see you. And it takes me a lot longer of a space to slow down and come to a complete stop than it is your car.
Yeah. So how do you handle the sort of mental challenge of knowing that you're driving an 80,000 pound truck at highway speeds, and one mistake could have enormous consequences? You got to stay alert, right? I mean, how do you handle all that?
The best you can do is just keep your eyes moving and try to keep that safety cushion all around you at all times. It doesn't always happen, but you try your best. If someone gets in front of you and they're going just barely in front of you, you just try to slow down even more. It makes other people mad because you slow down even more, but I'd rather be safe than sorry.
Absolutely. So do you think there's, one particular policy change or maybe rule change that would reduce risk for drivers? And what would it be?
If I had my way to make a law, is before you got your driver's license, you have to do at least a couple weeks riding in a truck.
That's a good idea.
Just so you know what the truck has to go through. Anybody who gets a driver's license should have to ride in a semi-truck for just say a day, just so they can see what it takes for us to stop and to see how stressful it is for us when you want to cut us off, just to hit that exit.
Yeah, people put themselves in your shoes and get a different perspective. I like that.
I recently saw a report, it might have been on 60 Minutes or something, about hijackings. Is that much of a problem, or was that sort of sensationalized on that show? I mean, do you think much about that?
I don't really think too much about being hijacked. I mean, there are bad areas to go to. West Memphis. I can think of right off the top of my head is, it's not a very safe place. Some truck stops, but you just go to the places that is safe. But you can get hijacked anywhere you go. But you don't really hear too much about it as a driver.
Then there's a lot of tracking systems on your trailers and that sort of thing that would make it. Yeah,
there's GPS trackers on the truck. There are GPS trackers on the trailers. So yeah, I mean, you'd have to be pretty smart to be able to disable it to be able to steal it.
Yeah, it sounds like it's more of a high-tech crime now than a low-tech crime because you have to be able
Yeah,
to deal with the
I mean,
technology. Yeah.
to me, it's harder to steal an 80-foot truck than it is a little bitty Honda Civic.
Yeah.
I think you're.
Yeah, but who'd want a little bitty Honda Civic?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Back to the risk thing. Do you have a story from your time on the road that can capture some of the risk that most non-drivers might ever think about? Can you think of a specific example from your experience?
I can't think of a specific one. You know, we take risks every day on just trying to be safe. You know, you see cars, like I said, cut you off. That
I've seen
they
that
just
a lot.
they can't miss that exit, even though you're 200 feet away from the exit. They want to go across 3 or 4 lanes of traffic just to hit it. So I mean, that's what I see every day.
I call those people two-dimensional thinkers because they don't realize they can go past the exit, get off, turn around, come back, rather than create an unsafe situation by swerving the way.
Or maybe slow down.
It might ruin their day by adding 5 minutes onto their day.
I know.
It'd be safer.
Yeah. It'd ruin their day a lot more if they got run over by an 80,000-pound truck.
The problem would be is if I hit them, it's my fault, even though they did something dumb.
Yeah, because you're behind.
Can't win that
one.
one.
Behind is always at fault.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious. You talked about driving for 12 hours. That's I've done that once
11.
or twice. 11 hours. I've done that once or twice, and it gets kind of old. and in terms of especially if it's flat terrain and all that kind of stuff. So how do you go about keeping yourself occupied, other than obviously keeping your eyes on the road and paying really close attention to what you're doing? But do you have a TV going in the corner, or is there music? What do you like to do to kind of keep yourself energized?
Sirius XM radio. So I listen to music while I'm driving. I've got my Bluetooth headset. So there's other drivers that you kind of talk to and all that, but you got to keep it to a minimum because think safety. So talk for a little bit and then go back to listening to music for a while. But the TV in the background, that's kind of unsafe.
Yeah. I was kind of hoping you'd say, I listen to the Adrenaline Zone all the way across the country, and I've gotten so much out of your podcast. Maybe on future trips.
Maybe in the future. Yeah.
Well, yeah. On future trips, I definitely will tune into the podcast.
Well, we've had some great guests, and including a driver named Joseph Newgarden, who won the Indy 500 a couple of times. So that was one of our earliest podcasts. He was really fun to listen to. Anyway.
Yeah, no, I was just curious, going back to driving as a career. So what would you tell a new driver? Talking maybe about the financial risk and the work-life balance and equipment costs. I mean, what advice would you give to a young person who is attracted to this profession, and what should their approach be towards that?
The advice I could give them is, if you want to buy a truck, you just got to remember, if you want to become an owner-operator, you're going to spend a lot of money, but it'll show you've made a lot of money at the end of the year. But if the wheels aren't turning, you don't make any money. But as a company driver, what I've done for my entire career is, I've made a name for myself. I ran hard. So pretty much you scratch my back, I scratch your back kind of thing. I try to do my best to get the load there on time or early. There's weather and traffic accidents, things that are out of my control. But as long as you work hard, trucking is a good reward. It gets lonely, but you just got to weigh your home time versus work time.
2 questions: Are you paid by the mile or the hour?
Depends on what you're doing. Certain accounts that here at Hogue, you get paid by the mile. Then you have your local drivers, which are paid actually hourly.
And then the other question is, Hogan's got a lot of drivers, right? I mean, it's a big company. It's like the third largest company in the country, I think. And you're one of the more experienced drivers. Do you find yourself in a position to mentor other drivers and kind of share experiences with them? Or are you just out there driving so much that you don't have much time to spend around your fellow truckers at the company?
Every once in a while, I'll see a couple other Hogan drivers, but mainly I kind of, I'm always on the road. I like to drive nights because there's not a lot of traffic at night. So pretty much when everybody else is driving during the day, I'm asleep. So if I see other drivers, I'll sit there and talk to them on the radio or at the truck stop, say hi, and introduce myself, and just have a good time. Try to help each other out.
Is that pretty common that people prefer to drive at night?
That's my preference. I couldn't speak on every driver. I know refrigerated freight mainly they work at night. They're especially out in California, the produce section. They're the farm workers are out there picking it during the day, and they load it in the afternoon, and then it just all depends on the time of day that you can get loaded.
How much is the trend towards self-driving cars going to affect your job, do you think? Or will it?
The self-driving car or self-driving semi-trucks like the Tesla truck and all that, I don't know how much that's going to affect us. It's probably going to affect it to a certain extent, but I don't see it actually coming online for quite a few more years, just because they're still in the testing phase of it. There's some trucks that are out there that I know they're run out in the middle of nowhere in Texas, where they're pretty much all automated, but they still have a driver in it.
Because you just never know what could.
You never know when that computer is going to go down and someone's going to have to be behind that wheel.
Or you get some random car person doing something unpredicted that the sensors and the control system can't react to fast enough.
Yeah. Yes, I do agree with that.
Well, we're getting close to the end of our time, but I did want to ask you, what would you say is the one thing that most Americans don't really understand about truckers and trucking that they probably should? They probably don't realize some of the sophistication of the job that you go through, but I'm curious, how would you answer that question?
With something that people don't really understand about the trucker is, I would say, the dedication that we put into making sure you get the goods that you want to buy. We're out here missing birthdays, anniversaries, holidays. We're out here missing that stuff. Spending time with the family just so the freight gets to where it needs to be.
Yeah, something we take for granted, right?
Mm-hmm.
You go to,
I would say that,
go to the store, and we've got. I remember taking a Russian pilot who had defected to an Albertsons grocery store to show him like American culture, and he went, yeah, sure, you just made this up for me. And I said, okay, get in the car. You tell me where to drive, and we'll go anywhere you want to go. And we went to another Albertsons 20 miles away, and he walked in and saw it, and he went, oh, you guys really do have this, don't you? And it really, huge responsibility of the trucker to make that happen, right?
Mm-hmm. The saying that I've always heard is, if you bought it, a truck brought it.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
good.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
That's a good leave it line with our listeners to maybe think a little bit more carefully when they're on the road driving around trucks and being a little more appreciative and helpful to keep the trucks safe as they're delivering things that they, the consumer, want.
So, Josh, I really appreciate you being with us today. Thanks for what you do, keeping those wheels turning and keeping logistics strong in our country. And thanks for being safe. And maybe we'll see you out there in one of those big blue Hogan trucks one day. And I'll wave at you and you can honk at me.
I hope so. I'll give you the big horn.
I promise to give you a wide margin.
Yeah, we'll be the ones driving safely around you.
Yeah, that's right.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity and inviting me onto your podcast. This has actually been a lot of fun.
Yeah, I've really enjoyed. I could probably chat with you for another 20, 30 minutes. I've got a lot more questions. We'll do it offline.
Okay.
All right.
That was professional trucker Joshua Hogue. I'm Sandra Magnus.
And I'm Sandy Winnefeld. Thanks again to Culligan for sponsoring this episode. Get exceptional water for exceptional performance. Learn more at Culligan.com.
Join us next time for another episode of The Adrenaline Zone.